seeing a presence of a quorum, I will call the Regional School Committee to order at 6:31 p.m. And we have remote participants. We will do a roll call vote. Jennifer?
Here.
Sarah?
Here.
Anna?
Here.
Deb?
Here.
William?
Here.
Sarah Beth present. Irv? Oh, Irv, we can't hear you. Are you speaking? It might be us. Tillman, are you?
I'm
Okay.
present and I could not hear Irv either.
Okay. So I can see Irv. We'll just give him a minute to.
Can Shannon hear?
Oh, Shannon, can you hear us?
Yep, I'm here. I can hear.
Excellent. Thank you, Shannon.
You want me to call it?
I think it looks like Irv is
He's talking, but we can't hear him.
trying to fix something. We still can't hear you though, Irv.
Four times epsilon, still epsilon. Sorry.
What? Okay.
There's a context that I can explain in a few minutes
Okay.
when somebody debriefs.
So, Irv, do you want to try logging out and logging back on to join us? And we will proceed with our meeting. We still can't hear you. Okay. Okay, so first order of business is public comment. There's some written that we received that I've attached to the agenda. We did not receive any voicemails. Is there anyone in the public who wanted to make a 3-minute comment? Sure.
Hi, I'm Kathleen Mitchell. I have 2 kiddos in the system. I don't really have my thoughts together. I'm sure like many of you don't have your thoughts together since yesterday, but I just wanted to come and thank you for all the work that you all are doing to try to secure more money for our schools. I had a chance yesterday to see the students marching on the way to UMass, which was very moving sight, and it was also incredibly sad that that's the situation that we're all in right now, is that we're asking our kids and our educators, including one of my daughter's middle school teachers who made the march on crutches. And it was very disappointing last night to then go to the town council meeting and know that those town councilors who also were aware that all those students are fighting for their own educations, that they were not moved to give the schools the money that, not the money they need, a fraction of the amount that they need. So I just, and for every parent, I think, that you see that writes to you or comes to a meeting or comes to town council, there are so many more who have not taken that step, but who are sharing our worry and our concern. It was incredibly frustrating last night to hear the suggestion that there should just be another 4 towns meeting when Amherst has come to previous 4 towns meetings unwilling to negotiate, unwilling to convene their body to negotiate. So I don't know what the path forward is. Obviously, that is for you all to figure out. But I just wanted to reiterate that I think there is a lot of support for a path forward that still tries to keep us committed to getting the maximum amount of resources we can for our schools, and that you will have a lot of support behind you as you pursue that. So thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So
I'm Vincent O'Connor, and I got home at 12:30 last night. Like some of the rest of us who were sitting in the back of the room. First, I want to say that it is now clear to everyone except the city council who needs to be informed of it that the towns do not all approve a large budget, and then the allocation has to do with something else. The counselor who spoke about that was completely wrong, and she will find out about it long before next meeting. And that whole process pointed out the need for the superintendent and the school committee to jointly discuss and vote on school budgets. It was just ridiculous to have knowledgeable school committee members sitting in the back of the room while members of the council made comments that were demonstrably inaccurate. So the second comment I have is by the same person who made the inaccurate comments about how the regional budget is approved in the towns, talked about the Amherst taxpayers. Let me tell you about the Amherst taxpayers. In Amherst, the taxable property amounts to $3,777,365,516. And if you divide the amount of money that was lost by that vote, temporarily, hopefully, you end up with a number that says the 318,822 difference between what Amherst will agree to and what was proposed by this committee. You will end up with, for every $100,000 of assessed value to a home or a business or whatever, that it would cost that business $8.44. $8.44 additional tax. One time. I'm a tenant who is paying $178 a month additional this entire year. $8.44 sounds to me like a bargain. And so I think it's important to focus on that, and also on the fact that this will result in this distribution to other towns in less money for the region. And I think that the committee needs to make that crystal clear, how much
That's
less
3 minutes.
money to the public and to all of the stakeholders in the regional school.
Thank you. Okay.
Hello.
Hi.
Sorry. So I am Michelle Prindle, parent of 3 Amherst children, 2 in the public schools, 1 at the high school, who was at the middle school the past 2 years, and 1 at Crocker Farm. And I'm just here to speak about, obviously, the concern that we all have about the budget cuts and the staffing cuts that are going to negatively impact special education. As a parent of an autistic child who has received services through this town, that deeply concerns me, and I just want to reiterate my concern about that, and also the music program cuts, because we all know that music is really an important inclusionary activity that is accessible to students that often are left out of other group activities such as sports, children with gross motor challenges, children on the autism spectrum that struggle with athletics find often like meaning and companionship and healthy emotional expression through music participation. So I want to say that that is a concern that I have, but also my son, who was at the middle school the past 2 years, repeatedly would tell us about the like abhorrent conditions of the middle school. And our children participate in Starlight Youth Theater, which rents the space of the middle school. And we had a theater performance there this weekend of Frozen Junior. And my mother and I needed to use the restroom where 4 of the ceiling tiles were missing, and there was like rusted old pipes. So I'm aware that the condition is not good. And once my son had a music concert, for orchestra and choir, and there had been some sort of ice melt thaw that had flooded the ceiling above the auditorium, and black water and sludge had poured through the tiles, and the students were supposed to stay after school to rehearse and have pizza and prepare for their concert, and they spent the time mopping up the black water sludge so that their audience wouldn't have to put their bags down in it. That was 2 years ago this past January, and that's disgusting. And I know that some of those tiles in the auditorium have been replaced, but obviously since then tiles are falling all over the rest of the school. So I just wanted to say that as a taxpayer in this town, I don't want to send my children to schools in this kind of condition, and the town council needs to step up. It's not acceptable in 2025 to have children going to school with black mold and things like that, and ceiling tiles collapsing on children's heads. And when it hits a child and there's a lawsuit against the town, we're going to be paying a lot more money than the cost to fix the roof of a school. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I think that's it. Irv, did we get your microphone sorted? Are you there? Okay. Hopefully soon. Oh, we can see you, but we can't hear you.
Can you use the phone? Can you phone?
Irv, do you want to try calling in to so we can hear you? We still can't hear you. I'm sorry. Okay. All right. Hopefully that will be sorted. So chair's update. All right. Couple of quick things. So yesterday, I was able to attend portions of the Commonwealth's Joint Ways and Means Committee, which was held at the UMass Campus Center Auditorium. And first I wanted to thank Principal Sadiq for organizing all of our students to be present. And I wanted to thank the students for showing up and to say publicly how impressed I was with all of them, with their behavior both inside and outside of the room. And I am very much looking forward to the day that they are the ones in charge. So the negotiations team for the APEA 25-28 contract has met 3 times in the last 2 weeks to continue our interest-based bargaining, and we have reached tentative agreements in the following areas: language for the school year calendar, language around job abandonment, language around sick leave, cleaned up complaint language in the Unit A contract, referred summer curriculum work process to the JLMC Joint Labor Management Committee, and the handbooks and boundaries documents to them as well. We came to tentative agreement, language and understanding around vacancies and transfers, including clarification around seniority and professional teacher status. Started the conversation around time and attendance, management and accountability. Language around maintaining educator license, cleaned up language around the Unit A hiring process, extended the probationary period for Unit B and C new hires, discussed the creation of a subcommittee to evaluate the Unit A evaluation process, discussed the preamble for the grievance procedures, and we started an in-depth conversation around the roles and responsibilities of department heads. And we want to take a minute to thank the entire team for such a productive week. There are so many things that have gone so well, and I personally am just very proud of the group and thankful to be a part of it. And we meet again on Thursday. And then My last piece of an update is I attended the Amherst Town Council meeting last night where they took up the regional assessment method and ultimately voted to reject the method, citing that it was outside the budget guidelines for the town and it doesn't follow the regional agreement method. Both Shutesbury and Amherst have requested a four towns meeting, which we are waiting for dates to be able to have representatives from DESI to attend. Once we have that date, I will send around more information and invitations. And then one piece of information I wanted to make sure we were all aware of is that DESI is no longer interested in us working outside of our regional agreement method. Which means that even if our four towns agree to some alternative assessment method, it does not mean that they are going to approve it, and it also does not guarantee that the Commissioner of Education will approve it. So hopefully we will have more information in the next day or two about when we can schedule the four towns in which DESI can come and be a part of that, so we can have a passing budget. Okay. That is the end of my update. Is there any school committee announcements or subcommittee updates? Oh, Irv, can we hear you?
Can you hear me?
Yay!
But now we can't
Excellent.
see you.
It's okay. We only
We
usually
cannot see you, but we
part of
can hear you, so
anyway.
that is good. Okay.
Can I ask whether Bridget would be willing to talk about yesterday's, the joint
Yep.
hearing? Did
Can
you
we-
speak? Did
Can
you-
we go
or
to
first?
Tillman and then,
I'm sorry.
because his hand was up? Yep.
Yes, I just want to apologize that I will have to leave soon because Leverett is holding an all-town budget hearing this evening at 7, where I will, I guess, defend the no longer relevant regional budget, but I'll try my best. I will rejoin once that is over.
Thank you.
Tillman, can I ask that if you can kind of listen in when you leave, if you have to leave before my update, and can you read some of the attachments too? It might help with what you're going to support or speak to.
So I don't think it's the right forum to have a longer conversation around the regional budget or the assessment method. I think we'll have to do this in the Four Towns meeting because all departments' budgets will be reviewed tonight, so we'll have probably a few minutes to just look at it. And it sounds like we need a longer conversation with the town, especially in light of the information related to DESI. But I will look at your comments just in case there's an opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bridget.
Yes, so, yeah, I attended the Ways and Means hearing in the afternoon, so I did see the students entering campus as they came along, and they got the attention of everyone. People were going to the windows at UMass and cheering them on, so, what I will say is that, the information that I heard from the Ways and Means Committee the first group didn't sound very positive in terms of the state budget increasing, but that as the day went on and when we presented the K through 12 panel that I was on, that there was very strong advocacy and that the committee of legislators seemed to take more seriously, particularly what we were saying about rural school aid, rural transportation, and just honestly these absolutely dire conditions that that the hold harmless districts are facing this year.
William?
Yes. I just wanted to ask that the Regional School Committee recognize March 31st as National Day of Transgender Visibility and affirm our commitment to fostering an inclusive and supportive environment for transgendered and non-binary students, staff, and community members. As part of this recognition, I would encourage our district schools to engage in age-appropriate educational activities that promote awareness, respect, and understanding of transgendered experiences. I further request the superintendent communicate this recognition to our school community and explore opportunities to collaborate with student, staff, and local organizations in celebrating and uplifting transgendered voices.
Jennifer.
Sarah Bess, I have a request regarding the Four Towns meeting. As we know, the Amherst Town Council has historically refused to make any agreements at the Four Towns meeting based on their past practice or based on their practice. So I wanted to ask that you make a pressing request of the Amherst Town Council for them to do whatever they need to do on their end to post the meeting, to post an agenda, to post it as a potential vote, so that they possibly can deliberate amongst themselves, come to a decision, and agree to something at the Four Towns meeting. Thank you.
Deb?
I am deeply concerned about the nature of this upcoming Four Towns meeting. It has been my experience, having attended 7 of them, that the mood, the nature of the meeting is supposed to be collaborative and focused on discussion and coming together, coming to the middle. And as Jennifer mentioned, that has not been the behavior of all towns. Amherst in particular last night, in requesting it, in the context of the statements made about the assessment method and why it was rejected, makes me feel like this is going to be contentious. And I'm really struggling with that, especially given the trajectory of Four Towns since I've started on this committee, in particular, last April, as well as other statements made. I have a really hard time with this idea that the town council made a decision last night determined to pay their part only if other towns paid more also. And I don't see that as the way a participatory town should enter into that kind of conversation. So I do agree we need to discuss it. I don't understand where the vote last night came from, as in statutory or bust. It was not in the financial guidelines. The town did not come forward. I lost my train of thought. The town did not come forward in any of those meetings as with a representative statement. They've made it clear, and if you go back to town council meeting committee assignments in January, you will see that their intention in attending these meetings is to say nothing more than what was contained in the financial guidelines that they gave to us in December. They stuck to that, and in fact declined to appoint an official representative of the town council to speak at those meetings for that reason. Therefore, all the statements made by individual counselors were just that, individual counselors. So I really don't know where to go with this. I think the process has been compromised. I feel like open meeting law might have been violated last night when, in discussing the assessment method, there was many references to not being able to afford or not being willing to vote for the budget itself. So before any of that gets straightened out, I think we need to talk about what we're going to talk about and how we're going to talk about that. So I am not enthusiastic about, I will participate if I'm required, but I just don't see this as a process that is functional now. I see it as severely broken from last night, and to proceed as if, hey, now we're gonna all come together and work things out, I think is naive.
Sarah?
I would suggest that this whole discussion get moved to agenda planning at the end of the meeting, because this is not member updates. We're talking, now we seem to be talking about what will happen at a Four Towns meeting. That seems like agenda planning to me.
Anna?
I was just going to ask, is this, is a longer discussion about the budget going to happen during the superintendent's update, or do we not have any discussion of the budget on the agenda for tonight?
I think the superintendent probably has some budget update, but we do not have the budget on the agenda tonight.
So is it, should we be talking about it, or like, is this the only time we have to talk about it, or what should we do?
We, yep.
I know what my update entails. We'll talk about the budget. I also would like to say I do not feel well, so I would like to get to the parts that I need to speak to so that I can leave.
Let's do that. Okay. Superintendent update?
It's a little bit different this evening. One, like I previously said, I don't feel well, but two, I think that with all of the comments and things that are currently happening, I wanted to jump straight into the budget discussion. So first of all, I too want to point out and give thanks to Principal Sadiq and the leadership team at the high school and the middle school with interim Principal Juan Rodriguez. But Principal Sadiq listened to the voice of the students, and the students, as we have raised them to be, have strong opinions too on the impact of the budget. And so for me, we are very proud. They were able to express their voice in a peaceful and respectful manner, both inside and outside. Many of them sat in the room when the meeting started. They were present, they were taking notes, they had wonderful signs. And it was a great opportunity for everyone else. There were some other districts that were present. I think one other district brought their students as well. But hundreds of students from Amherst, Pelham Regional Public Schools came inside and outside and showed their support for the district's need to get greater funding from the state. With that, I want to start off by saying that everyone has a lot of and I'm going to say this. Let me start off with my usual preface. I am very direct, so if I say something that is offensive, please let me know, and I will apologize, maybe not for what I said, but how I said it. Because from the onset of entering, even into negotiations for myself, I have to hear about the budgetary constraints of the district that we were entering in. And I paid very close attention to a lot of the conversations and what was happening prior to me entering the district. And I know that the budget and the situations, I couldn't see Pelham because it wasn't public, like televised. But for the Amherst Elementary District and the region, it was a time that caused a little bit of trauma for individuals and a lot of things, to the point that the school year possibly ended, and there still was conversations around making sure the budget needed to be passed. When I came in, there was still not clarity around the positions that were being restored and different things. And the amount of things that happened in this district, we can't continue to work like that. And the team that I work with and that we have started to develop is a very proactive team. And where they see pitfalls or they see a barrier in the process, they address it so that we can continue to run a strong educational system. And so let's overview. RSC on March 14th approved a $37 million budget, 6.5% cap per pupil assessment. All 4 towns have to vote on the proposed assessment. During those meetings and repeatedly from the first 4 towns meeting, I expressed, both at 4 towns and here at the Regional School Committee meeting, that one, DESE is tired of us every year submitting amendments to our regional school agreement. How did I know that? Because when I came in, I was invited to monthly meetings to talk about the fact that there are aspects in our regional agreement that are not in compliance with the law, and our regional agreement was up for review. We ended up talking about these for fiscal year, whatever only, budget amendments that were submitted. And one of the things that came up in our last, because Shannon has been sharing the information and assessment language. On March 10th, we received an email saying the Regional School Committee has no authority to create assessments for FY26 based on a proposed amendment to a regional agreement. There was a recommendation.
Point of order. It's not feeling like an update. It's feeling like a discussion about the assessment method.
I'm providing an update on the FY26 budget process. I think it's vital because on April 15th, I have to issue RIF notices. Something occurred last night. I need to make sure we understand as to what our next steps are. So I'm trying to bring things forward. I'm sorry if I'm not delivering it in that manner, but I am trying to bring an update.
If we can't discuss the memo you introduce, the email, then it's because you're presenting it in the update, then there's no discussion.
But I've discussed
I think we need to have the update so we can have it, and then if we need to add have a discussion, we will have, we've already talked about having FY26 on the agenda again. So we'll add this piece also.
But I also like to expand that in my previous updates, there's been discussions, I've been asked questions, I've been able to expand. And I feel that based on the emails received, the conversations that have been had, I need to provide an update. I also know the community is aware of what's happening because I've received emails and phone calls. So I think it is only right that I use the time to update on, one, what happened. So I'm doing a recap, and then I'm bringing things forward. So
It's the bringing things forward, but I will defer.
all right. One, in meeting with Desi today to provide an update, I did reach out to Desi today and asked for a meeting with our regional partners who oversee our regional agreement. In that meeting today, we were recapped with the guidance of what are some of our potential next steps, which is what we knew as a team and what we were trying to avoid. A part of the issue is that Amherst meeting is in June, which would have happened after the other 3 towns. When the committee voted, the team created the packages to go to the town, and the specific town, Amherst, expressed that there's a likelihood that this would not pass. If it did not pass in June, we would have happened in July, based on a DESI timeline, to have gone to a 1/12 interim budget. The 1/12 interim budget would have caused us to operate at a $2.5 to $2.7 million deficit. We would have been moving month by month. If we weren't able to create or have a budget by December 1st, then we would go into DESI fiscal oversight. So the FY26 concerns that we tried to meet by having that meeting last night was not about the budget, but would this assessment method pass, so that we would be able to know what we needed to do. One, contractually as a district, we have to meet the April 15th deadline of RIF letters, but we have to meet the 1 week prior notice to the unions. So that timeline brings us to the week before, which I believe is the week of April 7th. So even though in those conversations, those are things that we went over today, we also looked at, like I said, about the fiscal sustainability. In the attachments, Desi spoke to us today and provided us with additional guidance. One of the emails stated, it was nice speaking to you this afternoon. And she continues to say, because your last amendment was approved only for the current fiscal year, your committee must now go back to their agreement to calculate the assessment according to existing language, and that's the language in our assessment in our regional agreement. We were also today provided with guidance for regional school districts from DESI. We attached that. They also informed us that they have additional guidance that should be coming out today. Once we receive that, I will forward that over. That additional guidance is because other regional school districts have expressed that once they voted their budgets, that the towns are lower, some towns may be lowering numbers or changing the numbers. However, there is guidance that they are providing which says that that can't be done because of the regional agreement that was agreed upon. So, clear things that we're looking at in terms of our timeline. These are some of our next steps, including if the budget doesn't pass. So one of the conversations that I had today was if we would be able to have DESI representation at a Four Towns meeting. I also reached out to legal counsel to ask if he would be willing to be present to a Four Towns meeting to provide and answer any questions. Essentially, what we were trying to do was to be proactive in the fact that, one, even if the three towns had voted yes and Amherst had voted no, that would have spiraled us to where we are now in terms of not the budget but the assessment method. All four towns needed to agree. We also know that with our contractual timelines, one of the things we were trying to avoid was April 15th having to give a mass RIF letter because we would have had to RIF possibly the entire district. And if we had come to June, we would have been in that same place because we would have been going month by month, which is dependent on our revenues. Excuse me. Third, we wanted to be sure that it was clear that at the end of the day, even if the towns had agreed, even if all of these things had moved forward, last year was our last year for the exception of an amendment at DESI because of the timing of its submittal and the fact that our regional agreement needs to be updated within the statute. So therefore, at the end of the day, even if the towns had agreed, the commissioner still had the power and the opportunity to reject it, and we would have been back in this place because the amendment has to have the commissioner's final approval at DESI. So I just wanted to provide that in what have we done, because I think that in essence, last night was an opportunity, was a way for our team to see what are our adequate next steps to ensuring that we can provide an education for the students at the region. And so after doing that, this morning we met with DESI, we met with legal counsel, and so we're waiting for DESI to provide us some additional guidance. We said we'll have a call with them again tomorrow on some possible next steps and their availability to attend the Four Towns meeting so that they can speak to their role in this process, because we are overlooking the fact that at the end of the day, they are the final approver of any amendment to this regional agreement. So that's an update as to what we have done in response to where we are with our fiscal budget.
Jennifer?
Just really quick, Dr. Z, you mentioned having to issue RIF letters. Can you just, for people who might not know, explain what RIF stands for?
Reduction in force is notification of job loss.
Thank you.
Sarah?
I just want to make sure I understand the sequence of events, because I feel like, and it may be the case, that the rules have just changed around the assessment method, that we have thought that we could we could come up with an alternative to the regional agreement, and now DESI is telling us that we can't. So this is something that obviously we would have liked to have known months ago. So has DESI just lost patience with us, and this is a change? Or did we not understand what we had to do around the assessment method?
I would say that myself and Shannon has been stating this fact for a very long time. In almost every Four Towns meeting, we referred back. The last Four Towns meeting, we said that we should revert back to our, well, not the statutory, but the modified
regional agreement.
Right, method.
Yeah.
And so this has been what we've been stating. In all actuality, that is the option for this committee to vote what is in your regional agreement. However, anything outside of that agreement is an amendment to your agreement, and that amendment has to be approved by DESI, and that has always been what we've stated.
Is it appropriate to ask you to remind us what the budget looks like with, I guess it's the budget amount that we voted for with the distribution allocated according to the regional agreement. And then, if possible, I think one of the sticking issues that has had our committee a little stuck in changing how we're voting a budget is some towns stated inability to
Point
pay
of
more
order.
than a certain increase.
Point of-
I'm not having a discussion, I'm asking a question. I'm asking a question. So then would it be appropriate to present the full budget, the full level services budget, not the full budget, a budget that sets, let's say, Leverett's allocation that would be only a 6.5% increase for Leverett, and then adjusts all of the other towns' budgets to reflect the, the regional budget allocation method and compare those two budget? Is this not appropriate for this meeting or this superintendent's update?
So I can tell you based on what I learned today, is that the option, and what I can do is I can document that question and ask it when I speak to them tomorrow. What I learned today is that the option that we have is what's in our agreement. And that's the option that we should actually move forward with.
And Shannon presented that, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's in our slide somewhere.
Yes,
I think
and
last
from the last meeting.
Yep. Shannon?
I don't know if I'm allowed to chime in, so feel free to stop me. But what I think Anna is saying is if there was a reduction using our regional agreement to get Leverett at a 6.5%, what does that budget look like? And I did do that, and it would require a 2.5 million deficit. Amherst and Shutesbury's assessment would reduce below what they paid for 25, and Pelham would be at 14.86% increase, and Leverett would be at a 6.56 increase. And overall, it's only $135,000 more from FY25 to FY26, which is not ideal.
Thanks.
I do think we need to have a bigger discussion about this. So, follow-up question, yes, and then we will plan for another larger discussion.
I'm just trying to understand the options in light of the fact that I think we voted the budget that we believe is what the schools need. And we had another budget that we felt like came close, and there was close to a consensus or close to a winning vote on that. And so what I'm understanding now is that we can go with the regional agreement, we can do the statutory method, or we can get a new regional agreement. Those are the three options that we have to try and reach this budget.
No.
Explain to me,
So you can-
how do we get to our budget through this process, given the fact that some of the towns would, the majority of towns wouldn't get there?
So we were expecting another guidance from DESI this afternoon, but we didn't get it, which is the one that they issued around when the budget is voted, what towns can and can't do based on the law. We did not get that in time for the update, so that was the additional piece that we wanted to provide. So we're hoping that when we check in with them tomorrow, we can have that for you, because that was a part of it, like updating you on all of the documents we received from DESI today around this issue. One, our options are we go within our regional agreement method, which is the one that's within our agreement presently. We don't need a new agreement. We need to update our agreement to match the statutes of the law, but that's what we're working. That's why we meet with DESI monthly to go over our agreement and the parts that we need to update. But that's not for now. That's for as we continue to work. We can either, in terms of the method, go with the statutory method by law or the method that's within our agreement right now. Ideally, the recommendation is to go within the method that's within our agreement right now. That's how we meet the budget. And Shannon presented that the last time.
Just a quick follow-up. As soon as you get that, could you
I
send
will.
that to the
I will.
committee?
Yes, I
Even,
will.
You know, if we don't have a meeting, even whatever guidance.
What
you
guidance,
get from
yes,
Desi.
I will.
Thank you.
Irv?
I'm just wanting to make sure that we're just talking about the superintendent's update and we're not talking about the budget
Yes.
person. All right, thank you.
Okay. So,
Okay, so I will definitely provide, once I get the, tomorrow, Shannon's tomorrow, we're supposed to check back in with her, right? She's gonna meet with her team and check back, yes.
Yep.
Okay,
Yes,
so
she
she's
said
gonna
check
meet with her team and check back in with us tomorrow. We didn't get the additional guidance that we were supposed, the last piece today. When we get that, we'll forward that over to the committee. And then from there, we'll be able to say and provide the committee through the chair with what, or whatever additional next steps need to be taken that we get guidance for.
excellent. Thank you. Okay. So, looking at the agenda and your desire to go home. Facilities and Brim.
And then I'll sign on virtually for the rest.
Okay, sounds good. So, middle school facilities update, please.
So we have an update, and our wonderful new director of operations is here, Mike Gallo, on the facilities. He's been working very diligently and hard, so I want him to just provide us with a update and answer any questions. I think the committee will be very pleased with where we are at. We're not where we want to be, but I think we would be very, very pleased with the steps that have been taken since our last meeting.
Welcome.
Hi, thanks. So yeah, I'm Mike Gallo O'Connell. I'm the new Director of Operations. And so far, I think I have some information to share with you about the state of the roof. So the snow has melted, and since that's happened, we've gotten up onto the roof. We've repaired some of the spots that were causing leaks that we could find. We'll continue to monitor that over the course of time and work on repairing them. We also identified a roof drain that was damaged, that's causing a leak above the district office entrance. So room C24, Family Center, is causing water issues in those areas. So we've gotten a quote from a contractor to come out and repair the drain for us. So we're going to schedule that work to be done. The damaged ceiling tiles, there were a number over the course of the spring thaw. Number of leaks had appeared, and they were waiting to replace some of the tiles for the leaks to stop. So over the weekend of March 16th, we replaced a number of ceiling tiles, and we'll continue monitoring that and replacing them as we need to. None of the ceiling tiles and the drop ceiling tiles at the middle school test positive for asbestos, so that's not a concern. The roof replacement project, we've been approved for the MSBA ARP grant, and we now have a project manager and a designer. The work is on track to be completed the following summer of '26. So in that time period between now and then, we're gonna have to continue to monitor the roof, make repairs where we can. We'll continue to have issues with the roof. the situation kind of is what it is with the roof. So we'll just need to be active about how we are working to control that as much as we can. We scheduled an indoor air quality test at the middle school. It occurred last week on Friday, so they took air samples in like several locations throughout the building, and we're still waiting for the test results from that, so we'll share that with you when we get those. The building commissioner also came over last week. I invited them to come to the school, do a walkthrough of the building, just to assess the situation, and they saw how we're trying to deal with the leaks, and you know, they felt like what we were doing was adequate, and they also suggested the indoor air quality test to make sure that it's a healthy environment. Let's see. Oh, there is an issue that we're aware of in the band storage room with mold. So that's been I guess a known issue for a little while. We do have a quote now for mold remediation for that area. So we're going to schedule the mold remediation as soon as we can, and then we'll monitor that area. That area the mold wasn't caused by leaks in that area. I think it was an issue with humidity. So we're looking into solutions for that, potentially, you know, knocking a hole in the wall in those two rooms and putting a fan in, or like a drain tube for a dehumidifier, and we could operate in those two rooms. And we might also, I think, remove the carpet. There's carpet in the hallways for the auditorium. I think removing the carpet would probably help address some of that issue too. So that's the update. We're working to handle the situation as well as we can until we do get the new roof. So yeah.
Thank you. Sarah?
Thank you. Two questions about the roof, and maybe Dr. Z will know if you don't, Mike. I think we were told that first of all, it's wonderful news that MSBA has finally accepted us into the program. I think we were told that it's only going to replace half the roof.
So it's
go ahead.
Sorry. It's two sections. So it's not the auditorium section. It's the main school building, and then the pool, gym.
So everything but the auditorium?
Yeah.
Okay.
That section of the roof didn't qualify. It wasn't old enough.
Wasn't bad enough. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, but it sounds like it's the majority of the roof.
Yeah.
Great majority, much more than half. And do we know what the reimbursement will be? What fraction of the cost does the MSBA program pick up?
Shannon?
Do we know yet?
I don't know what that is. We'd have to talk to them. But right now we're not in the process that they say, yes, we're gonna do the roof. We're in the design process. And that's not a 100% guarantee from my understanding that they will still do it. So we haven't gotten that far yet.
Okay, so my excitement was premature. Are they paying for all the studies, the design or are we on the hook for that? Or some fraction of it? Do we know?
We had to provide documents that we had voted capital funding for this project, and so we will use some of that for those design, because I mean, if we do the design but MSBA says no, then we at least have the design.
At least we have a design. All right, thank you.
And to clarify, that vote was done, I think, in 2019 by the regional school committee because we had to submit it as a part of our documentation.
Deb?
Thank you for this. This is good news to get solid information that we can share with our community, so I really appreciate that. I had a couple questions about the timeline for the completion of the roof and how we know that in the absence of things like the design.
Well, that's the information that I've gotten from meetings with the design team and the operations manager for the project.
The MSBA design
Yeah.
team, okay. The location of the hallway that's been sealed off, can you describe that with respect to the auditorium and the music
Yeah, so
instruments?
that hallway actually isn't sealed off because of a mold issue. It's sealed off because students would disappear into the hallway and it's not monitored, so I think it's more of a behavioral thing than
I
a
see.
mold thing, yeah.
That's good to know.
Yeah. But that was the story. The guy that I'd heard that as well before, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's really good
And maybe
news.
that keeps the kids out of the hallway. I don't know, but-
And
And
we're
then
working on
just
some
tell 'em
additional
it's one.
cameras as well, because I
Yeah.
think there's some blind spots in the middle school, so I know that was a part of the request for the upcoming year.
And then my last question is, my experience in that building is that you go to the auditorium and you watch the water drip. So the fact that it doesn't qualify for the MSBA money, how does that fit in with the fact that it might be wise to, I mean, I think this is to Sarah's point, to do it all together? Is there a plan for doing it all together? Is there an assessment for that it needs to be done, but we don't have the MSBA funds to do it?
We would have to pay for it. So that would be, when we talked about the capital and all those things, that would be possibly what we would have to use our capital towards. Because it was not, our understanding is the age of it. I think that was an addition. So the age didn't allow it to qualify. So we would have to actually fix that.
Excellent.
But you're asking
and I
us
just-
if we can add, I wanted to clarify, is your question for us to find out if we can add it into the work that's already being done and what that cost would be?
Yes, please.
Okay.
I do know that with the elementary school building project, which is not under the purview of this, but there was a question about whether or not the town could add on solar to the existing solar, and they were told no because it wasn't part of the original project and didn't integrate well with it. So if there is an ability to do that now in a cost-effective manner, I would like to make sure that window
It's done.
stays open.
Mike, when you meet with him again, can we find
Yeah,
out?
I can inquire about that.
Excellent.
And I just want to add, if for some reason I don't know how much it'll be from MSBA, but we already had the capital of 3 million, that if we didn't spend all of that, perhaps that's an option. So Mike and I will connect on that.
Bridget?
Oh, thanks. I was just wondering, at first, I just want to say thank you. I think there's been like a little bit of a gap in information and so much
Yeah.
public concern, and this really helps me personally to understand the details, and also I can tell there was a lot of work involved, so with appreciation.
Thanks.
And then now I'm going to add to your list, so sorry. It seems to me that we were sort of rushed a week or so ago when we approved our capital requests. We know that those aren't capital requests that you'd worked on, that someone previously had, but some of them didn't seem to take into account. I mean, particularly I'm thinking of the middle school curtains, but the mold situation, and then probably these things that you're talking about do entail some capital. So I'm wondering if it's possible for you to give us things that we might amend. I know that what we've sent to town meetings can be amended, but not completely changed. So maybe there's amendments there to be made.
I can look into that. Like, speaking about the curtains, so I think that the issue with the curtains is fire safety. I think they have to be treated every 6 years. They have to be taken down, sent out, repaired. So that's an expensive process. It wasn't just a matter of, there's a safety concern with the curtains, I think. And I also know that the walk-in and their freezer at the middle school, I think, were on the list as well. And the issue with those were the kind of coolant that they use is being phased out. But I can look at the request
Yeah,
list
I
and
think
try and see if.
Absolutely, and I
Yeah.
know I have that same coolant in my house, so I totally get it.
Yeah.
The one, just quick follow-up, I think the concern was spending 150,000 on something that just might take on water and get moldy.
Yeah.
Shannon?
I just wanted to say for like the air tests that were being done, we did have some capital funds left from a previous request that we were able to apply to that, so it's not from our operating budget. And I know the mold for the music storage room quote was about 8,500 or so. Mike, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but just to kind of give you an idea of price wise, I think it's helpful.
Just to piggyback on the curtain issue, might it make sense just to take them down and then buy new curtains when the leaking and the mold has been resolved? Just something to keep in mind.
Okay. I would say that we would have some very upset performing arts parents and individuals that came in, but I also understand the safety risk. So I think that we could look at it and we could prioritize it.
Yeah, just something to think about.
Think about, okay.
All right. Anything further? Excellent.
Thank you, Mike.
So much.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
All right. Brim.
So we were asked to provide an update on where we are with BRIM, and I just wanted to provide a brief update. So, this is the first one? No, this is the first one? Okay. Overarchingly, we know that bullying and harassment is not, and intimidation is not tolerated within our district, and we, I believe, in January released our BRIM data update from the start of the school year to that point. February, thank you, Seth. February. I think we should be getting ready to release another update at least by mid-April before spring break. One of the things that came from that there were some questions from the community and different individuals, and in there we talked about the word compliance and timely intervention. And from that kind of sparks at the elementary level where our schools are providing updates on how do they deal with shifting the culture, because behavior is a part of the school culture. In the region, one of the things that we did was to ensure that there were bullying platform or flat posters placed in all of our schools. So it's not just at the region, but in elementary schools, that students can scan the QR code and file a report. What we started to realize, which came from it, was one of the gaps in the process was the investigators putting information within BRIM. I think what became a gap in our protocols, and one that we are working to address, is BRIM is a tool. It's the software, it's the platform for us to gather our data, to store our data, to alert us to issues that are happening. And so it started to be looked at as an outward-facing tool, but was essentially also presented as an opportunity for a tool that we could use inward. One of the other tools that we had was our bullying checklist that went along with our intervention plan. And so what we are coming up with right now is a new investigative protocol sheet that will embed BRIM into it. I know I put will be embedded into BRIM, but will embed BRIM into it. And what this will do is it will tell our investigators step by step, outside of just using the checklist, this is now what we expect to be done when there's an investigation and how to use the tool. So last week, I met with our director of mental health as well as our director of information systems, and we were able to go through the entire software to determine how can we make this happen. Is this something we have to add or shift? One, when an investigator goes in or when a report is made verbally, right now, investigators are asking either the student or the parent to sit and put it into the system, or they're using the checklist to investigate it verbally, like the normal way. What we want is to capture all of the data in one place. So what can now happen is an investigator, if someone comes in and makes a verbal complaint or a written complaint to the school, which we have to investigate regardless, the issue was that it wasn't being put into the software or the platform. Now our protocols are going to say, go into BRIM, click, and I am going to misquote what it is, but basically click begin an investigation. When they click that, they're able to enter who the person is, where did it happen, and then identify themselves. Because you can, just like on the regular checklist, you can identify yourself as school personnel, all of these things. On the bottom of that, you can put investigator assigned to, which you can also put in your name. Further into the platform, you can also attach files and documents. So now what we're going to put in a protocol is to attach the checklist or attach witness statements, attach communication logs, attach the final details. So everything now can be stored within the platform. So our goal is to have consistent, transparent, and legally sound investigation process, because our intervention plan has clear things in it, but it's a plan that everyone doesn't pick up, right? And I'm going to be very honest. People talk about plans, they talk about different things. It's something that you write and then you put on the shelf. We're not here to put things on the shelf. We're here to implement. So the purpose of the investigative protocol is to become like an implementation tool. Just take all of the key highlighted parts of our plan and put it into place, but also talk about how we expect the BRIM tool to be used for this. So our timeline is that right now we are in the developmental stage of our protocol. Once I receive the final draft and review it and vet it, I know it will be greatly appreciated by this committee. So yes, I'll say it ahead before Bridget or William asks me. Yes, I will send it over so that we can review it. And then the idea is that by fall of 2025, we have staff training on the new protocol. I would like to do like a mini pilot and kind of run it for the end of the year to see and get feedback from individuals, from the deans, from the teachers, from everyone. So once it's updated, I would like us to kind of run kind of steps to see what it is. And then kind of monitor more deeply. Next year, kind of do more quarterly reports around it. One of the things in speaking is that the data, like how pretty you received it in the report, it's not pulled like that. So the team actually needs to kind of take it and kind of pull the data into and visualize it so that it can be better read for everyone. So probably looking at if we can insert that into our data dashboard, or if not, if we can have that. So right now, realistic goals is to kind of create quarterly reports for the upcoming year so that we can kind of issue that out so we can start to see. And of course, just highlighting investigator expectations is that we're going to use BRIM as a tool for tracking all bullying and harassment investigations. We're going to adhere to the checklist and timeline for parent communications and final reporting. There's some things that can be done in BRIM, but there are things that have to be done outside of BRIM, which includes just a 30-day follow-up email saying this is the next steps. So we really want to take those protocols for the schools and school leaders and kind of take that out and streamline it for them, and that's what this is going to be. about. And I wanted to say it's not about compliance, it's about culture. Like I started off by saying, it's about what's the culture in terms of our school expectations and what we're setting. And so we're all about safety, accountability, and care. And that's our update.
Sarah?
Thank you. I wonder whether any of the refinements or the ways you're changing or adding to BRIM are going to, or do any of them mean that the bullying prevention implementation plan, if that's what it was called, does that need to be changed? Like, this is somewhat iterative, like.
No, so
Okay.
it's, and I will say that there was a slight update that was made due to a PRS complaint, and then we had to reload it up onto our website, right? But it was language that we were missing from DESI, which is now in there.
You're talking about the plan?
The plan,
prevention plan?
right? And it was something that we assumed was clear, but DESI wanted it clear, so we cleared it. But what I will say is no. BRIM is the tool. The plan is the guide. We're creating something that says, how do you take the plan and the tool and work together to keep our students safe?
Anna?
So I think it's really great to get this update, and it sounds like there's been a lot of progress in the system. But what we still aren't really getting is progress on bullying.
Okay.
And so we have had pretty much zero information about how many bullying reports are being made, how they're being addressed, how many of them have been either cleared or, so like how many of them have been determined as they actually are bullying, how many of them have been said they are not bullying, how many of them were some other kind of harassment and were they addressed. So we have gotten basically no reports on that aspect of it. We've gotten updates on the system, but we haven't gotten updates on how much bullying is occurring in the school system.
Okay, so I want to clarify your statement for myself.
Sorry.
So that I am clear. The update that was received in January, February provided a poll from the BRIM system of the types of incidents that occurred by school, those things, and identify the gap. However, your statement is not solely from the BRIM system, but overarchingly how many instances of bullying and things have occurred at schools, even if it's not placed into BRIM.
So there's two problems.
Okay.
One is, are all of the instances being reported in BRIM?
No, that's why we're updating this now to make sure it is. So that's
And then
clear.
the second part is, sorry, the second part is like, when
You
will you
want
be
a full
reported doing
picture.
giving us a new update? And then in response to the last update, there was a teacher or an administrator who wrote in very upset that you had said that one of the schools had 0 reports, and it was because they weren't using the system. And they said, maybe it's because we don't have any reports of bullying. So I was wondering if you had followed up with them to
I did.
determine whether it was no reports of bullying or not using the system.
I did. And I did that. I don't know if that's, I don't know all of the comments that were made, but I do know that 2 things occurred. One, I did provide a clarifying statement afterwards around that. And that's why I said that for the elementary, that we did bring the school in to talk about what they do in their culture. 2, that's one of the reasons why we're now doing the investigative protocols and things in place, because one, every school has a different use for different tools, and we've been presenting that, where one school talked about how they use educator handbook versus another school is talking about this versus they may not have conflict, but it doesn't arise to the level of bullying. And so I did clarify that the elementary schools are making presentations. I think what I am also hearing from you is what I did address in that thing is saying all of the reports are not in there because there are some that may be on paper. I do know that in meeting, I think that for the most part, majority of our schools, what I was told, are using this platform. But for me, I know the idea is if we have the tools if we have everything going into one repository where we can pull from and speak to, then we should be better in highlighting our data. So I can work with the director to determine if there's anything that's outside of the BRIM platform and then provide a update at the region around that.
Okay, thanks. William?
Thank you for this update. I guess I would like to make a comment. I think that the bullying intervention plan is very well thought out. I think the implementation of it has not been so great. And so I appreciate whoever, looking at that and doing more to push that through. Staff training, you're hoping that to occur in the fall. I guess my only question is there going to be, like, what's the accountability factor for these administrators or individuals, teachers, deans, whoever, to actually be entering it into the system? Is there going to be some form of accountability in that?
So there's two things. If our process isn't clearly documented, we can't hold anyone accountable for stepping outside of it. So that's my first, that's what I learned. Like, you have to be very clear on what it is that you want done and your expectation, and you go from there. So that's why the first step is for us to outline what the process will be, how do we abide by it, and what do we do. From there, there's always accountability when individuals step outside of the process. What that would be or could be would be dependent on what is done and the severity of it and the gaps in it. And so I think that I can't give like a hard and swift, like, this is what I would do, but I do know that everyone will be held accountable. Once we've clarified and trained on the process, then we need to move forward with holding everyone accountable for our student safety.
Sarah?
You spoke to the importance of school culture in preventing bullying from happening in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
It's not BRIM that's going to prevent bullying. Although maybe consequences, if it leads to consequences and investigation, it's helpful. So I don't know if this is the time or you're prepared to say anything about what efforts are ongoing or need to be made at the middle school that just had a leadership change, or at the high school, to promote the culture that doesn't accept bullying and harassment. Maybe, well, that's my question.
So elementary-wise, you have character education, you have different things that come in, you have, counseling sessions, small group sessions, you have lessons, you have, in the middle school, they have advisory, they have how do you work together. Like, I think that we have to build it into the culture around what that expectation is. I think that for the upcoming school year, working with both leadership teams and they working with their deans and guidance teams and counseling teams to talk about key behaviors that probably need some addressing ahead of time. One of the things that we need to look at is the grade level, where we see the highlight of the most behaviors. How do we intervene? Sometimes with some schools, so for example, the high school, when you walk in the morning, you'll see Principal Sadiq and you'll see Cody at the door. And for some individuals, you might think that that's just like the principal at the door, but that's also where they know their students enough to know if a student is having an off day to stop and have a, hey, good morning, progress check. You see the same thing very similarly when you walk through the middle school. So it's all about making sure that our educators are supported, but then our students understand what their expectations are. So I think we might have to build some of that into the curriculum and into the programming And so that's a conversation that I will task the leadership team in doing, like, how do you address this? Not that we want to see an increase in numbers, but we actually want to have something in place where students understand that that's not the expectation of behavior there.
William?
I was just going to piggyback too, that if you recall, we asked the superintendent to do the Welcoming Schools, which is a whole anti-bullying platform. They just, I believe, had their last training for this year.
In March, yes.
And it was on bullying. So I think that is, hopefully, it's a 2-year more process, but hopefully that will also help. So I do think that there are things that are happening.
Thank you.
Deb?
Yeah, it's only tangentially related. My kid tells me that there's no more advisory, it's just homeroom. Is that true? And what does that mean?
Right now?
That's
I'll
maybe
have to
I'm
look.
misinterpreting
I'll have to
that.
look at, I'll look into it.
Okay, I mean, it was just a word, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they're still meeting, but I just wonder how unadvised, if that's accurate, if I misunderstood. And if it is accurate and I didn't misunderstand how that kind of lesson would fit into it.
Okay. I'll check into it. Homeroom? Okay.
Homeroom, that's what I hear.
Middle school?
No, here.
High school. Oh, high school.
High school?
Just a word change.
Oh, thank you.
Just a word change. There we go, thank you.
It's like of all their parents calling it homeroom too many years in a row.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, any final thoughts, questions? Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll sign in virtually.
Okay.
That's how
Sorry. Okay, next up is our FY '26 fees discussion and vote. Shannon?
So this was presented at the last meeting, well, not this one, but the fees were presented and you all had requested some changes. So I did 2 options. Option 1, I increased the parking fees more significantly, and I added the reduced fee for musical instruments, and I only increased the full fee for athletics, and did not increase the reduced fee 1 and 2. And that seems to be the only changes that I made from last time based on your discussion. Option 2, I know it was one person that suggested not having an increase for reduced fee 1 and 2 for athletics. So I didn't know if the whole committee agreed to that. So I decided to do a second option that increased the reduced fee for 1 and 2 on athletics, and to present both, and then you all can decide what you'd like.
Thank you. Jennifer?
So Shannon, thanks for these 2 new options. What I'm seeing, if I compare options 1 and 2 to the original fees document, what I'm seeing is you originally had raising parking from 80 this year to 82, and so in options 1 and 2, you're raising it to 100. And then for athletics, for example, for full fee 1, the first athletics participation, you originally had it increasing 5% to $288.75. And in options 1 and 2, you're increasing it 10% to $303. And then there's just the variable of whether or not the reduced 1 and 2 are increased or not. So it looks like you've increased the base price, base cost, more than the original proposal. Is that right?
Yes, that was what was asked of me to do.
I don't love it. I came away from the last meeting thinking that there would, I don't know, that there would be some like optional higher tier. Maybe we talked about this and I'm just not remembering appropriately. But a 10% increase in the like standard rate for athletics is a lot from year to year, especially given that there hasn't been an increase Sorry, this is not, it's not a criticism of you, Shannon. I'm speaking to the committee. You just did what we asked you to do. There hasn't been an increase in athletics fee for 5 years. And then this proposal proposes an increase of 10% in 1 year. I don't love that. I do appreciate, a lesser increase for reduced 1 and reduced 2, but for the base rate to go up 10% in 1 year, I don't love it. I feel like we, for whatever reason, didn't raise the athletics fee from a small amount from year to year over the past 5 years, which I'm always in favor of raising fees a small amount every year just to keep up with all the increased costs of everything, as opposed to having it flat for 5 years and then a big increase in year 5. I don't love the 10% increase in the base fee. Thank you.
Sarah?
I understand that 10 is a jump, but we also heard a couple months ago about how this whole athletics program is apparently losing money at a fast clip. So I do think it's important that we boost it. I think it's more important that we raise it at the full fee. I don't have strong feelings about to what degree the reduced 1 and 2 are, how much they're raised, if at all. Yeah, but we got to catch up. I mean, it'll be, hopefully we're bringing in enough revenue and plus with the work that Shannon and Victoria are doing to try to figure out what these programs really cost, we need to stabilize it. We don't want to have to cut athletics. So I'm going to support the 10% increase.
Anna? Oh, I'm sorry. It's William.
I was just gonna say I would support either of these. I think that a 10% does seem like a jump, but I don't think it's that large of a jump, in my opinion. So I'm okay with this one. I would support it.
So I also support the 10% increase. I think I don't know if it's feasible to create another tier. It might be impossible just because of the way free and reduced lunch qualifications work, and that there's no tier between full and reduced 1. So, but I do think that if we do raise the full fee that much, then when someone who's supposed to be paying full fees that doesn't necessarily qualify for a reduced fee, there can be sort of an individualized modification of the fee schedule that could try to address that. I do worry a little bit about catching those that middle ground of student who's doesn't really qualify for reduced lunch fee, but is still kind of, the family's still scraping, and so raising athletic fees by $50 could still be problematic for them, and I want to be respectful of that. But at the same time, I do think that it has been 5 years since we've reduced the fees, and if we reduce the fees, if we increase the fees sort of minimally each year, we'd probably be at this point. And so, I think we're doing a lot of things in a way that's not ideal, but we kind of have to do what we have to do in order to make it work. And again, I feel like I don't want to increase the rates for the free and reduced lunch, or the reduced 1 and 2 levels, because of this concern that even now, some students are still struggling to pay for athletics. So I do want to, I would recommend raising the top full amount, but not raising the reduced amounts.
Jennifer?
I'm still really struggling with this. I just wanted to respond to Sarah's comment about the financial state of the athletics program, because my impression was, based on our last meeting, that the idea of raising the fees more was not about the health of the program. It was about serving families who might be struggling to meet those fees. So Yeah, I mean, I agree with Anna that I think that, I mean, we don't, I don't think we know to what extent, what percent of families pay the full fee, but that's like, there's a, I would assume, a broad range of income levels in there, from those for whom $300 is nothing to those for whom $300 is a lot, and an increase of 10% would be a lot. So I'm really struggling with this proposal.
Deb?
I wasn't 100% clear on the fee issue that we faced Q1 being related entirely to difficulty collecting rather than follow through, because they're two separate, deliberately entirely separate parts of the system. And anecdotally, I've been told about somebody who belatedly discovered that their child hadn't paid a fee and just never got a reminder about it. So I think all of those things will be impossible, especially since we don't really know how much these programs cost anyway to run. I'm having trouble with my connection, but did we raise the cap too? And if we raised the cap, maybe
What do you mean, Deb? Raise the, what cap?
Oh, there's a maximum amount any one family is expected to pay in a year. So that might be a way of kind of finding the middle ground between raising the fees a lot, but not raising the cap as much. I don't know. Just a thought. That's all I got.
Looks like,
Oh, yeah. The cap was raised 10%.
10% as well.
Yeah. The family cap and the individual cap. And, you know, and
go ahead.
I guess, and this is very, like, it's a personal reflection, but you could have different children in your household that might qualify for free lunch and might not qualify for free lunch. So then I'm not sure how the family cap really makes sense anyway.
It's still
Yeah, I don't know.
do we have,
Sarah?
I'm getting concerned that not that we're overthinking this, maybe we are overthinking this. I mean, because there's so many numbers and we could have so many different strategies and send it back to Shannon again. I think Shannon's pretty busy. I think this is something we're supposed to be doing every year. So I would suggest we just choose one and pass it and move on, do our other business.
William?
I just have one more question. Maybe this is irrelevant. I don't know. Just looking at this, like, when it says family cap reduced one, in my household, I have a child who does qualify and have a child who doesn't. So then how does that fit in with the reduced family cap? Is it child family? Like, I don't really, I guess that really confuses me.
My guess is that is a fairly unique situation. And I'm fairly certain that on all of the athletics things, it says, if you have an issue with any of it, please come talk to us. So I think that is always an option. So I do think we need to pick one. And Sarah?
So unfortunately, I don't think these two memos have anything on them to indicate which is one and which is two. I mean, if you printed them out, I did. So I'm going to I'm going to move that we adopt the fee schedule that I think is number 2. That has full fee 1, for example, going up to 303, and reduced 1 going to 112, and reduced 2 going to 55. So that one, I think.
Second.
You're calling this one option 2?
Yes, I think it is option 2, but
Only confirming.
okay, well,
Wait,
that's why I mentioned the specific numbers.
which one is it the one that increases reduced?
303,
Or not?
look at athletics, go down a little bit.
Yep. That does not increase reduced.
I want to scroll down to.
No, she's suggesting the one that does increase reduced.
Correct.
Megan, can you scroll down a little bit?
That one?
Yes, this one.
You're saying option 2, the
I'll
one that
leave it
does
with that.
increase the reduced fees.
This one, whatever its file name.
Okay. It was,
Next time, please give them different titles, so we, yeah, this is the one that's been moved in second.
Tillman, was that you that seconded?
Yes.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay. Jennifer. Oh, I'm sorry, Bridget.
Sarah, sorry, Sarah Beth. I'm just gonna abstain from this vote for just looking at the cost and thinking that reduce 1 and reduce 2 are families between $15,000 and $40,000 in income a year. So if you hit that cap, $455, that's a lot of money when just the lights and the rent and everything come into play. But I think I expressed myself as clearly as I could last time, and those tweaks aren't, or the addition of a top tier or something like that wasn't added. So I just leave it be.
Okay. Jennifer?
As I said, I don't love either of the options, but between 1 and 2, if we're going to raise the full fee by 10%, it should be for a reason. And if the reason is that therefore we can keep the reduced without an increase, that's better. I still don't, sorry, I don't actually know that I would vote yes on 1 or 2, but I know I'm going to vote no on 2. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I'm sorry I missed that before. Okay.
Could you repeat what you just said, Jennifer?
Yeah, just that, so this is option 2, which it does increase reduced 1 and 2 a little bit. It's a lesser increase than the full fee. And 1 has the same increase for full fee, but no increase for reduced 1 and 2. And as I said, I don't love the 10% increase of the full fee, so I don't know that I would vote yes on 1 or 2. But between the two of them, 2 is less preferred. Because if we're going to raise the full fee by 10%, it should be for a really good reason. And if the reason is so that we can keep reduced 1 and 2 with no increase, that seems like a really good reason. To raise the full fee by 10%. Whereas option,
But isn't that what is 2?
2 raises reduced 1 and 2 a little bit.
This is not 2.
1,
This is more.
yeah, 2 raises 1 and 2, 2 raises reduce 1 and 2 a little bit. 1
Option 2 is behind you.
doesn't raise 1, doesn't
That's
raise
option
1 or
2.
2 at all.
That's what they're voting on.
I get it. Thank
I
you.
had them reversed.
Yeah, it's,
So it's increasing
Yeah,
$3,
okay.
$1.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just quick comment.
Yep.
I'm siding with the same idea of I would support option 1, but I would not, I'd be less inclined to support option 2.
Okay.
Let's just vote.
Okay. Yep, Bridget?
I just want to clarify, is option 2 the new one, Shannon, or is option
They're-
1 the new one?
they're both new.
They're both new.
Oh, they're both different than last time?
Yes.
Okay, and option 2 is the one that's 10% for like folks who don't qualify, and option 1 is the one with like small increases at the lower levels.
No.
I-
Oh, well, yeah.
can I, so both option 1 and 2, what they have in common is raising the full fee by 10%. So full fee goes from 275 to 303 in both options 1 and 2, 10% increase. option 1 keeps reduced 1 and 2 at no change versus last year. So those folks would see no increase versus last year. Option 2 raises reduced 1 and 2 by a smaller amount, by 2 or 3% over last year. So I guess in both cases, raising the full fee by 10% is sort of like subsidizing the reduced one because the reduced rates are not going up as high. I just would prefer, if we're going to go 10% raise, 10% increase on full fee, that we then use that to cover the increase for reduced 1 and 2.
Okay. Jennifer, how do you vote?
No.
Okay.
No.
Which one are we voting?
Option 2, which includes an
yeah.
increase in fee in reduced 1 and 2.
I have them both now.
Perfect.
I just didn't remember.
Yep.
Thank you.
Bridget.
Now that I know which version is which, I'll vote no on this version.
Yes.
Anna,
No.
Deb,
No.
William,
Yes.
I thought I was going to see. I'm sorry. Irv,
No.
Tillman,
Yes.
and Sarah Bess, no. Oops. Okay, so option 2 fails. 3 to 6 to 0. Okay. Anna,
I move to approve option 1.
Second.
any further discussion on this one? No. Okay. Jennifer,
No.
Bridget,
No.
Sarah,
Yes.
Anna,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
William,
Yes.
Irv,
Yes.
Tillman,
Yes.
and Sarah Bess, yes. All right, so that one passes 7 to 0. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you, Shannon. Okay, and then you're up again, my friend.
Yes, I hope this one is quick and painless. This is something that we ask every year when we have a new ban and we do borrowing. There is always an interest payment that we have to make, and we can either pay it out of our operating budget, which we don't want to, or we can pay it out of our capital stabilization fund. And in order to do that, we do need school committee approval to pay it from the capital stabilization. So that's what this is for, is to allowing us to use the stabilization funds to pay the interest.
Thank you. Deb?
I think Irv was first.
Or
Or
no.
Tillman. No.
Go
Okay.
ahead.
I'm still confused about capital. It's not related to voting, but capital stabilization is separate from excess and deficiency.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Tillman,
I move to approve the FY25 disbursement from the Capital Stabilization Fund as shown in the Treasurer Interim Finance Director memo dated January 31, 2025.
Second.
Second.
I think it was Bridget. I'm gonna give it to Bridget this one. Any further discussion? Sarah?
Shannon, can you explain how money, or in how much money is put into the stabilization fund and how much is going to be left after we spend this?
Yes, so The earnings, so what we get from our interest, from the interest rates where the money is actually held in the bank account, we earn interest on that, and that goes into this. Is that right? Or is that the interest income? I'm not sure. I could get back to you and check what our balance is. I think I looked at this today before the meeting, and I want to say it wasn't anything that I was worried that we were spending 53,000 out of. It seemed healthy and just a normal thing that we did each year.
Thank you.
All right. Any further discussion? Okay. Deb,
Yes.
Anna,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Bridget,
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes.
Irv,
Yes.
Tillman,
Yes.
and Sarah Vess. Yes. Okay. So that passes 8-0 with one absent. Okay. Excellent. Okay. Irv. Oh, you're muted.
All right. I move that the Regional School Committee form a budget review task force. This is done recognizing the importance of thorough and transparent budgetary practices within our regional system, acknowledging the need for diverse perspectives in fiscal planning, and acknowledging that the current budget formation practices have led to continuous budget deficits. It is proposed that a dedicated task force be established and further be it that I resolve that the Regional School Committee form a task force, that the task force shall consist of a majority of regional school-related individuals, representatives from relevant unions, representatives from the 4 town government officials, or the representatives, independent school budget experts, and that the task force be charged with examining all areas of the current budget, that the task force develop actionable items to guide future budget developments, and that in support of all of this, the studies have shown that collaborative budgetary planning can lead to more efficient use of resources. Input from diverse stakeholders ensures that all community interests are considered in financial decisions.
And second?
I have a point of order. It was Deb.
Was that Deb? Yep.
I have a point of order or clarification. I think that Irv, you omitted 2 of the bullet points from the composition of the task force, so I just want to be sure whether they're in or they're out, namely the school superintendent and the Amherst town manager. And
Right, that is operationalizing, that's part of it. And operationalizing this, that is a part of it. And I wanted to
I know,
speak
he
to
didn't
that.
read them. He did not read aloud that bullet or the following bullet. He skipped to independent school. So I just want to, that was just an omission, accidental omission. What we're
Yes.
looking at on the screen is what you are proposing.
Right.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Discussion. Irv, do you want to speak to your motion?
You know, given where we are right now in our budget process, given the fiscal situation that we find ourselves in relationship to the 4 towns, given what occurred last night at the town council meeting, it seems that we are at a point where we really need to recognize that we do have a problem. And it's sort of like, I was trying to characterize it in a way that would make sense. And it's sort of like the regional school committee comes up with, and the superintendent comes up with a budget amount that really speaks to our needs. the town council via the town manager has will put out a particular budget amount in terms of a guideline. And those two things always clash. The guidelines versus that which we think meets our needs. And that is something that we can't continue to do. We need to have a collaborative process that involves all of us, as outlined in this motion, to sit down and come to some reasonable, actionable ways of dealing with future budgets. And I can think of no better way to do it than this task force, because it has all of the relevant actors involved. And so that if this process were developed, by the time we got to the Four Towns meeting, these issues would have already been thoroughly discussed and resolutions would have already been made, because we would have already had a feedback from the task force.
Right. Jennifer. Thank you, Irv.
So I am not in favor of this motion, not because I agree that there needs to be deep study and research on our financial issues and financial state and status, but I am not in favor of the composition of the task force. I think that the school superintendent and the Amherst town manager are already super busy, and I don't want to ask them to join a task force that sounds like it's going to involve a lot of work and meetings. I think that, I think any task force would include not those two individuals, would be advising those two individuals, but we shouldn't include those two individuals. I have an objection to number 3, charged with examining all areas of the current budget. What I don't want is to see people, even if they're representatives and elected officials but digging into the details of the school budget and making recommendations. I don't think that's appropriate. I don't think it's warranted, and it's a road I don't want to go down. As well as proposing a 5-year overall operating budget and capital plan. I just think that I think there is call for a committee or a task force to do a deep dive into our issues. I don't think that this task force, the composition and the charge, I'm not in favor of. Thank you.
Bridget.
Well, so I see there's 2 task force on the agenda. I want to say I was at town council last night till midnight, and I heard many town councilors talking about the school budget and just making many factual errors. Like somebody said, oh, well, we don't want to do that because, we need to save that money for the middle school roof. But Amherst budget doesn't pay for the middle school roof. That comes out of our capital. So but there were about 11 things that I counted during, a short discussion like that. So I feel like the need for us to have solid communication on the budget facts and the budget, the budget future and where we're headed and that type of thing is really important. But what I don't think we can do is talk about 2 competing task force separately. So I would move to table this until we talk about both, talk about the second proposal as well. Does that make sense, so that we can know what the options are?
Yes. I don't know how to do that with Robert's rules. To have them both open, we open them both at the same time?
I'm just going to move to table this one unless there wants to be more discussion on this one. But I think after we discuss this one some more, we should move to table, hear the second one, and then someone can
And
make a
then go from
motion for
there?
a vote. Yeah.
I like that.
Can I?
Okay.
I don't.
Sarah, you are up next.
Okay.
So
I'm
what do you
up
got?
next. All right. Irv, I understand the problem. I think we're all acutely aware of the problem. And I thank you for making a proposal to try to move us forward. But this is very similar to a trial balloon that the Amherst Town Council floated last spring. And I didn't like it then, and that was shot down pretty quickly. And in particular, I would object to operative clauses 3, 4, 5, because it's nobody's business but ours to decide what the budget is going to be, about what we're spending money on. And it's what we have that statutory duty. That's our job. It is not the job of select board members. It's not the job of Amherst Town councilors. And they would need a huge amount of education that probably they don't really want to have about our budget, because they got their own budgets to worry about. So it seems to me that the towns, what they need to be doing is focusing on the regional agreement side, and the how they're going to decide what they can afford to pay. It's not up to them to decide how we spend the school, what we budget for, and what programs we design, and what staff we have or services we give. It's just not up to anybody but us. So I will object to this.
Irv?
Let's see, in terms of Jennifer was speaking for the superintendent and the town manager and the council president, and saying they're too busy, but she doesn't know that, they haven't been asked. So that's just pure supposition. And then the whole thing about digging into our budgets. My God, what do you think they're doing now? They're doing it anyway now. This is a public body. Our budgets are public. To say they're not digging into them is superfluous. It doesn't make sense. If this were a hidden budget and no one's seen it or saw it, then of course that would be correct. But our budgets are public. The town council and the finance committee of the town know intimately what our budget is about. All right, and and the other thing about it is that as long as people are sitting on the opposite side of the table and not participating and looking at and being a party to the budgets and how they are formed by us, and being informed by it, how do we then expect them to make informed decisions about our budget? They're supposed to make it in a vacuum? That doesn't make sense. So the other thing in terms of the composition of it is intentionally done in such a way that it includes all of the actors who impact or are impacted by our budget decisions. The other thing is, and the bottom line is, that the clause says that whatever conclusions they reach and recommendations that they make, it has to be reviewed and approved by the regional school committee. We're not giving up any kind of control, but what we are doing is saying we want a collaborative and open and transparent process with our partners. These are our partners. And everything that we're talking about tonight in terms of how we're struggling with how to deal with a situation in which the assessment method was vetoed by the town manager. It seems that, and I assume, I don't know this, I assume that the other towns are struggling with the same thing. Every time in the fall we come to a four towns meeting, the four towns come there without being fully engaged and involved in our budget process. They're not. So, arguments that, they shouldn't be digging into it, shouldn't be a part of this, etc., when they are. To say that the information isn't public, it is public information.
Okay, Deb?
So Irvin, I just
discussed this before, and I indicated I wanted to talk all task forces. I had a request of Sarah Best, which I did not write up as a memo. Yay. It is in the Amherst Town Charter, which was adopted in 2018, that the Regional School Committee is to open up the assessment method and negotiate it. Yeah, I should have looked it up. It's been a long couple of days. Sarah, do you have the charter?
Go ahead.
Sorry, I think you're correct. You're saying the charter says that the regional school committee should open up the charter and invest, and
Open up the
this-
assessment.
open up this assessment.
And it has come, and I wanted, the reason I wanted to do this, wanted to create a group, a committee to do this on the day we voted the budget, because I knew the budget was gonna be a hard sell. And it seemed to me that it would be an acknowledgement that we've been, that this process needs to take place, and that we have been, I don't want to say remiss, but it's certainly been a long time and we haven't done it. So I talked to Irv about including the assessment method in his task force, and he seemed, well, I mean, it's not written out, and I've been really fragmented, but I feel like that would sit well in his task force, and I have the same reservations, but I would like to discuss those with the other task force side by side.
Anna?
So I have I'm trying to figure out, is the purpose of this task force to include other town members so that we get earlier buy-in for our rationale for how we're designing our budget, so that they, in essence, get more transparency about how we have come to our conclusions about the budget? Or is this task force to help the regional school committee in assessing what we really need to fund and where we can create efficiencies and help us do our job of developing our budget for us?
Irv?
Yeah, Anna, it's A and or B or A and B. Because one without the other doesn't make sense, at least to me. But overall, the biggest reason for this is that we just need to be more inclusive in terms of our budget formation. A, and B, we need to have all voices coming together to try to look at what we as a school committee struggle with and understand what we are struggling with. And we need to understand what the towns are struggling with. And all of that group comes together and comes up with some actionable items that says, here are some things that we think will improve this process and improve the outcomes. And in the final analysis, all of those things that they come back with in terms of recommendations have to be then discussed and adopted by vote of the school committee. But what it really is simply is, hey, guys, we can't keep doing this every year. Every year we come back and we have the same thing happening year after year after year. And I don't know why we expect some different result when we haven't done anything to change the result.
Tillman?
So I agree with the premise that Irv just articulated, that we do need long-term planning. I think there's interest from the side of Town of Leverett to talk about the assessment method and really settle that whole issue so that when we have four towns meeting and discuss budget, the discussion is around by how much we grow or not grow the overall budget, not how we split it up between towns. I think having those two things uncertain in those conversations makes it very difficult to focus on what you really want to talk about, which is providing a good education for our students. I'm a little concerned about the scope and complexity of the task force, just in terms of, this sounds like, 3 full-time jobs in terms of going line by line through every budget item, and I think we need to put some limits on just what the task force focuses on so it can produce a result within that scope. I think it requires a lot of expertise, educational expertise, to look at a budget and really see what each line means in terms of impact if we were to change it. We see this every time we have a discussion around the budget where the superintendent has, for example, proposed a certain amount of cut. And then the question that we ask is, what does this mean for the education of our students? And the answer to that takes a while to be developed, because it's not clear what a cut in a particular line actually means on the ground. And so I'm a little worried if we open up the budget as part of that task force to go line by line, that there will be a lot of conversations that the towns may not be interested in, right? They may trust us that if the superintendent says, this is the proposed budget and this is what we need, and, this leads to such and such changes in the education of our students, that they take that word. I think the task force should focus on the 5-year planning, on the assessment method, and all the things around it. And where appropriate, of course, you can ask about a particular line item in the budget, but going line by line, I think that's too much for this particular task force.
Any, Bridget?
I just have one small thing, and I think it applies to both proposals, which is in making this a task force that is just between us as the regional school committee and Amherst, are we privileging Amherst over the other towns?
Irv?
Yeah, Tillman, you make some good points, but I really do not think that this task force will be getting into the weeds of the budget on a line-by-line basis. That certainly is not the intent of this. The intent is that they understand our budget-making process. They understand where the costs are coming from, how costs are formed, what our programs are, et cetera, what the assessment method is, how that impacts our budgeting process, that each town is able to talk to each other prior to us getting to the 4 town meetings, so that there is a complete understanding of what the regional school budget is and what it's all about and what it is capable of doing or not doing. It is an educational process more than anything.
Tillman?
Yes, I hear what you're saying, or then I'm just concerned about item 3 in, I think, what you moved. I didn't see what was moved because I can't see what's on the screen, and so I assume it's what's attached to the agenda. But there it says that the task force will be charged with examining all areas of the current budget, and that sounds like what I was worried about, and you're now verbally saying that that's not really the intent.
Yeah, Tillman, given the scope of the group and the group itself, getting into the weeds of the budget would be counterproductive all the way.
Okay.
One more little thing. One thing is that in the Amherst Town Charter, we're supposed to have a participatory budgeting process. It hasn't been enacted yet, but I noticed that there were these parts of your proposal that are about focus groups and getting public opinion and that type of thing. And I think that would fit under that. And the second thing is, now that we talk about this one, I wonder if it's too convoluted, the first idea to table this one, discuss the other one, like maybe we just have a vote on this one and then move to the other one.
Sure. Irv? And then Deb.
Just one other comment. The second proposal is like comparing apples to oranges in terms of this proposal versus the other one. And it's not a competition between the two because the two are totally different. Different in style, different in substance, different in terms of outcome. And I can speak to that when that proposal comes up. But looking at it very carefully, these are just two entirely different proposals, and they do not even propose to do the same thing. They really do not.
Deb?
So I am interested in a group. I don't know if you want to call it committee or task force. I don't know the difference, and I don't think I need to right now. That looks at the assessment method in a neutral way. I don't know how to do that. And I'm interested in small steps. I'm not really interested right now in recreating something that might already exist. I'd like to hear the town do their discussions around this proposal, which is the committee that is also being jointly sponsored through the town. And I've come to believe that we don't agree on anything. And there's some really serious boundary problems. So I think starting with something small, like information and what information to consider, we could build on going forward, because I found the moving target and the changing sources and the references to other school districts really impedes my ability to communicate effectively with the town council.
Sarah?
I think the process for renegotiating any part of the regional agreement, including the assessment method, is very prescribed. We don't need to have a task force about it because DESE will tell us how we do that, how we do it. And if they are able to come to the Four Towns meeting, that'll be a perfect time to find out, okay, what do we do? Who starts, who's involved, just how we do it. So, yeah, I think we're going to need to go there, but I don't think we invent a process for doing that. So I would suggest we just wait to see and ask DESE how we do it. I'll just say one more thing about this proposal in front of us. We are responsible for the educational program and deciding how to spend the money to deliver the best program we can. That is not the responsibility of any of the appropriating authorities. They just want to know the number. It's not really their business how we are spending that money. I mean, of course they can ask questions. I never said our budget is hidden or they couldn't know about it. Of course they will have questions. But they're the ones who need to come up with the money. So I don't want to blur responsibilities and authorities. So that's why I object to this.
Anna?
So I have two different topics. One is we worked really, really hard to come up with an allocation method that worked for all four towns. We finally were able to get to that actual method like 2 years ago. And to now say, we need to try again and create a new allocation method if I go back to my town and I say we're talking about renegotiating the allocation method, they will cry. They will all cry. So I would say we have come to a very reasonable allocation method. It is the statutory method, but what it does is it smooths the population component so that the small towns where 1 or 2 pupils can make a huge difference from 1 year to the second year, they don't get hit with this year we have 5 kids going and next year we have 18 kids and now our allocation has doubled or tripled. So they worked in this population smoothing method to just sort of adjust the population contribution to the statutory method. And we worked really, really hard to get there. And to say, oh, actually, I think we should talk about that again, is just it took a long time to come to an agreement to that. And to open it up and say, we need to talk about this again, is just going to cause all kinds of problems. And so I would highly encourage us not to do that unless we really think it's an unfair way of doing it and we have to renegotiate it. So what I would say is, let's try not to go back to the allocation method and just try to get back to doing the allocation method and not doing the allocation method. And then the second part is, I agree with Sarah. It is our job and the superintendent's job to put together a budget. We know best about what our school needs. It is not Amherst's job to tell us what our school needs. It is not Shutesbury's job to tell us what our school needs. It is our job to know. And if we can't do our job, that's a problem. Shame on us. We should be able to do our job. And if we can't do it, maybe we should resign and let someone else take our job. So I think we do need a task force. I think somebody needs to sit down and go through things and figure out what it should be. But it should be us, and it should be the district, and it should not be Amherst or anybody outside of the school district trying to figure out what's best for us. So yes, let's put a task force together, but let's not invite all these other people in. Let's do it. And let's get it done.
Tillman?
To that point and what Sarah said, I agree that we need to make it clear that the budget is our responsibility. But the long-term planning and the guidance and the conversation with all the towns as described here is necessary. So I propose an amendment that we strike item 3, which is being charged with examining all areas of the current budget. Then, to me, the things that are left, which is develop actionable items to guide future budget development and propose a 5-year overall operating and capital budget plan, makes sense because that's basically what is happening on a 1-year basis, but not on a 5-year basis already.
William?
I'm called a question.
Okay. A vote yes ends discussion and we move immediately to a vote on the motion. A vote no means we continue to have this discussion. Everybody good? Okay.
Clarifying question?
Yes.
The discussion about this particular motion.
Yes.
Okay.
The motion is to call the question, yes.
Yes, we are currently voting to call the question.
Point
Jeff?
of order.
Yes.
I believe I proposed an amendment. I mean, it's fine if we don't consider that. I just want to be clear if that, what happened with that.
I think it
Correct.
didn't get seconded or absorbed
Well,
by the original motioner.
Well,
Okay.
it wasn't, anyway.
Okay. Jennifer, how
Yeah.
do you vote on calling the question?
Yes.
Bridget?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
William?
Yes.
Tillman?
No?
Irv,
No.
and Sarabas, yes. Okay, so we are immediately voting on the motion. Or would you read your original motion, please?
I have to bring it up. Hold on.
Okay,
Someone else, if someone else has it, they can do it, but I have to bring it up.
is it recognizing the importance of thorough and transparent budgetary
Right.
practices?
Right.
What?
I mean, it's already a part of the packet, and it should be there. Everyone knows it's right there.
Yes.
You can put it on the screen.
Within our regional school system, acknowledging the need for diverse perspectives in fiscal planning and acknowledging that the current budget information practices have led to contentious budget deficits, it is proposed that a dedicated task force be established. Resolved that the regional school committee form a task force. Resolved that the task force shall consist of a majority of regional school-based individuals, representatives from relevant unions, 4 towns' elected government officials or their representatives, the school superintendent and the Amherst town manager, the school and town of Amherst finance directors, independent school budget experts. Resolved that the task force be charged with examining all areas of the current budget. Resolved that task force develop actionable items to guide future budgets and developments. Resolved that the task force propose a 5-year overall operating and capital budget plan subject to review and approval by the regional school committee. Okay, so that is what we are currently voting on. Jennifer,
No.
Bridget,
No.
Sarah,
No.
Anna,
No.
Deb,
No.
Irv,
Yes.
William,
No.
Tillman,
Yes.
and Sarah Beth, no. So the motion fails 2-7-0. Okay. Thank you. Okay. 2-7-0. Okay, so next up is a discussion for a long-range fiscal impacts task force. Anna Devlin Gothier from the Amherst Town Council came to Jennifer and I, asking for our inputs and thoughts on this. So I wanted to bring it to the regional school committee for their thoughts. So the idea behind this, is a information gathering body. That it is, the thinking behind it is that when we have all of our town discussions about budgeting, is that everybody seems to be working from with different information. And this is about everybody working with the same information. So that is the overarching idea. This is not about telling the school committee how to design your budget or anything along those lines. It is about looking at the population of our area and what the demographics will look like, and if there financial implications from the state and the federal level, as much information as we can have from that, and making some sort of more long-range predictions about what our area is going to look like. So if that means that in, 5 years or 10 years, we expect that, 50% of our population is going to be over 55 means that we're going to need different things that if 50% of our population is under age 10, right? And so everyone is looking at the same information when building their own budgets. And so there's shared information. The reason it is designed the way it is as a task force of the Amherst Town Council is because that's the only way they can have something along those lines. The other option would be for 2 separate subcommittees that then meet jointly, or however many towns, the subcommittees all, the big committees have their own subcommittees, which then meet jointly. But then it means that we need double all of the nitty gritty, silly business pieces of it. We need 2 sets of minutes, and we need 2 postings. And this is going to be a lot of work. And that, to me, when we were having this conversation, felt like a wasteful place to put that energy. So it's not about it being ownership of the town of Amherst, but it was a way that the committees could work together. I think that is a big picture. I'm happy to answer any more questions, and I think we should have a discussion about it. The other thing is, it is both part of the membership is regional representative and an elementary representative. So we are having a joint meeting on the 8th, and that we can all have more conversation about it together then. So there's all the information. Yep.
So we're not deciding anything tonight, we're just discussing because this will come to a vote at a joint meeting? Is that the plan?
Yes, I think so. I mean, I don't think Amherst Elementary has had a chance to have a discussion about it, right? So neither has the town council, because they opted to end their meeting early yesterday.
So this is not our only chance?
No.
We're just, okay.
No, that was not my intent.
Yeah.
I think this is a bigger conversation, and I didn't want it to be, we have to talk about it right now, and we have to decide forever, right now. Okay. I think Deb had her hand up. Oh my gosh.
What?
It was Anna. I just.
Anna did have her hand up.
Getting people's
So-
names.
I am.
It's a long day.
Yeah.
I feel really shut out. I feel Pelham really shut out, and I feel Leverett really shut out. This is about a couple people from the region and a whole bunch of people from Amherst getting together to talk about Amherst and trying to get Amherst to tell us a little bit more. And I understand that there's a need to get Amherst to understand what the region is doing, but this really shuts out the other towns. And so I just want to state that.
Sarah?
Thank you all for working on this, and thanks to Councillor Gauthier. I like this more than the previous proposal because it is not getting into our business around our budget, and it is trying to look to the future. And that's all good, and I certainly support the idea of everybody wanting to have kind of the same understanding or have the same facts or maybe the same expectations about demographics over the next 10 years. The Donahue Institute has done work on that, I think. But I'm not there's only so much you can find out about the future ahead of time, right? So I don't know how much this will be able to accomplish, but I do wonder whether it would be possible to add to the charge if this happens, coming to an agreement about the past, because there's been a lot of disagreement about, and not to argue, but like just trying to work through and not like trying to be the victor and we're right and you were wrong, but to improve understanding, like even just what our the population has been, the school population over the years. You know, people come up with different numbers, even about our budget, because there are proposed budgets and then there are actual budgets, and then it would be nice, I think, to have an agreed upon set of facts about what has already happened, because people respond so strongly to proposals, draft budgets or whatever, in part based upon what they believe has already happened. And we've had a lot of disagreements about what has already happened. So I'd suggest, you know, without spending all the time harping on the past, at least trying to come to an agreement about some certain parameters, important parameters.
Deb?
So many thoughts. One, and I'll really try to be brief. I hear you, Anna. And I feel like this committee works well together, and I don't really want to do anything that undermines that. At the same time, I would encourage you to think about the representative from the region as the representative from the region and not the Amherst representative. Just putting it out there for whatever it's worth. I do think starting with data is good. I share the same reservations that Sarah has about projections. You can just always go and see where this leads. I appreciate the fact that it's relatively well-defined, that the submitting no later than November 20th is mindful of the timeline that is part of the budget developing process. I think that there's so much that needs to be done on our end. There's data, there's goals, there's a process, and there's a timeline. And I think the process that Sarah speaks to has to take place, but I don't think it can take place in the absence of establishing data, timeline, and goals. So I don't want to dump all that on this one committee. So on the one hand, you all got together, I think, with some thoughtfulness around Anna's statement. We might be able to make this work. I really want to support Anna, and I get Anna and Anna like backwards in my head all the time because you look so much alike. Because she's the only town councilor willing to advocate for us, and at the same time, I feel like she's been respectful about boundaries in a way that I feel was grossly disrespected last night by the town council. So I want to support her. I want to give her the power, and I want to give her what she needs to help her help us, and I trust her. But what happened last night, where the Amherst Town Council decided to vote what they voted, which is entirely within their authority, but the fact that I didn't know that vote was taking place until I looked at the packet didn't work for me. The fact that I just felt like, and this is a conversation for a different day perhaps, but my understanding was we had a plan, and part of the plan was to do what we've done all year long, which is for the Amherst representatives to communicate with the town council representatives and to do a little bit of negotiating. And all of a sudden, town council decided to interpret the smallest part of, so all of it was blown up. The process was blown up. The goal seemed to be entirely driven by what the town council wanted to do and nothing to do with our responsibility as appropriating authorities to our schools. It was just, there was no part of what happened last night that worked for me. And so it's very, very hard for me to have any interest in anything until that plays out. In particular, they blew up their budget, our budget, up to them based on ignorance about the assessment method and resistance to letting us explain it or giving us the time to. They were not interested in hearing it. They were not interested in what Sarah Beth had to say. She said it 3 times at least. This blows up our budget. And they're like, no, it doesn't. And like, why did you bring her there to ask her to sit there and explain over and over again? All right, now I said I was going to be. So, I am just, I will abstain, but I until there's some semblance of restorative something, in particular, they believe we still have a budget, and we have said we don't. And why they don't believe us, I don't know. But until that's resolved, I have nothing to say to them and nothing to hear from them, and now I'm gonna stop.
Jennifer.
So I super appreciated Anna Devlin Gauthier contacting Sarah Bess and me as the chairs of the Regional and Amherst School Committee, and I felt that the three of us worked together well. And that being said, even though I co-authored this memo, my thinking on it has shifted since then, and hearing people and talking to people tonight. First, what I like about this task force is that it's high level. It's looking at overall trends in the community and in needs, and it doesn't get into the nitty gritty of the budget, which, as my fellow committee members have said, is the school committee's responsibility. That being said, I do think we need to include the other 3 towns. To Anna's point, I don't think it's wise to have a task force focused on the school budget that doesn't include Pelham, Leverett, and Shutesbury. In addition, I'm uncomfortable with the 1 resident member on this task force, if it's composed this way, being appointed by the town manager. I'm not super confident in the town manager's appointments of resident members to town boards and committees, so I'm not comfortable with that. And perhaps most importantly, I don't think we should. Sorry, again, and I apologize to Anna Devlin Gauthier, even though I co-authored this memo. I don't think we should agree to a task force that has to follow the town council's and the charter's rules. I think we should pull this out from having to follow the town council's rules and pull it out from having to follow the charter's rules so that we are not dictated by their structure or their rules. I keep saying rules. And so I'm hearing that this can't be a town council task force unless it follows these rules. Well, maybe it's not a town council task force. Maybe it's just a school committee task force that includes town council members. And if they say, sorry, we can't participate because of our rules, well, that's their loss. But maybe this is going to be a task force that we decide how it's composed, and we collectively decide on the membership. And we task it with making recommendations to the Regional School Committee and Amherst School Committee, however we decide we want to do it. I think that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
William.
I think I could support most likely what Jennifer's describing. I can't support this. 1 resident member. It should be 1 resident member from each town. I didn't realize it was appointed by town council. I would have an issue with that too. 2 school committee members. I know someone said 1 person from the region. We should think of them as from the region. I don't have any clue what Shutesbury and Leverett have to do or what they need. So I think it's hard to have a region person that represents Shutesbury, Leverett, and Pelham with a full base of knowledge. I don't have the energy that Tillman has to go to his town and take that. And I wouldn't ask Tillman to have the energy that Sarah Bess has, because it's not me, but that Sarah Bess has that goes to Pelham and has conversations with them. So the only way I could support this is if it had equal representation from all the towns.
Anna?
So I started looking at this in a different way. And, if this is a task force that is designed primarily to aid Amherst Town Council in their budgeting process, to then give them for them to get the demographic information and figure out how that affects their town's needs, and that includes what their town's needs are relative to the region, I can see how this task force could include one representative from the region and inform Amherst in their budgeting process. But this task force it's poorly designed to help the region in their budgeting efforts. So the region needs more information than just what's happening in Amherst. The region needs to know what the population demographics are in Shutesbury, what the population demographics are in Pelham, and and Leverett. And so if that's the aim of this task force, is to understand that for the region, this is insufficient. If this is for Amherst to understand how their demographics affect the region and how their demographics affect the Amherst schools, then we can help them understand that. But they can't help us understand our population and our budget without including the towns. So if this is more about Amherst, then I think this works. But if this is about the region, this doesn't work.
Bridget?
I mean, I think Jennifer and Anna said a lot of what I was thinking. I think it has to be a regional body because each of the towns has such different economic and fiscal needs, right? We go and serve on so many town boards and committees, FinCom, JCPC, BCG, that are all about this exact sort of idea of fiscal planning, although in different parts of the budget, we're doing a 5-year plan in JCPC, or et cetera, et cetera. So I feel like Amherst Town Council gets a lot of our expertise, whether they integrate it or not, I don't know. So I think if we were going to have this, it would need to be a regional school committee body, and we can easily invite 2 or 3 counselors without them hitting a quorum. I don't know, there's a herd of them I saw last night, maybe 14, 13, I think. So what I do like, I want to say 2 things I really like about it, is the idea of a shared set of facts, because that's dramatically missing. And, but I don't read that very clearly in the language of the charge yet. I think it needs some wordsmithing. And the second thing I like was that date of November 20th, 2025, which means like you do the work and come up with something and present it to us. The last thing I would say is that as we make it, can we make it with a balanced number of individuals from both sides, like even, so we really have to talk and convince each other and get, I don't want a one vote beats out type of situation, where you just can put a power play, but so people have to really talk and work together and build a consensus.
Tillman?
Sherry heard you.
Tillman? Oh, we can't hear you. Oh, no. Hold it. Try again, Tillman. Nope, hold on. I think it might be an us problem. Sorry. Sorry. You can hear us, but we can't. Oh, that's good.
We can't hear Dr. Z either.
Yeah, I think it's a us problem.
Sarah Beth?
Yep.
Well, maybe while they're working it out.
Yes, Sarah, while we're
So I
getting
want to
this
say,
sorted.
I understand, because of the difficulty we find ourselves in now, how hard it has been this year and how hard it was last year. I understand the impetus to figure out some way to make this whole budgeting process work better in the future. But I will say, we're not out of the woods yet on this year, and I'm reluctant to start some new, ask people to give up more of their time to start working on the high level thing until we've taken care of this year's business. I don't know if we would involve Shannon or the superintendent but the town manager this is the busiest time of year right now, and we haven't yet produced, we're not done our work. So I'd rather focus on that and not try to launch some additional effort yet.
Oh,
here.
Oh. Getting better.
Yes.
Oh, we can. All right. Tillman,
So-
hold on, it was Tillman first.
And my comment was that Irv had raised his hand before me.
Oh, okay, well,
All right.
Go ahead, Irv.
When I went through this proposal, the first thing jumped out to me is this is like policy development 500 as a graduate level course. Because this is data compilation and analysis, but giving the data, it seems to me, why would we want to take the time of the individuals and the people outlined in this proposal to do this, when actually this is something that the Donahue Institute could do very easily within a month or two and come up with the same data? What is the value of taking the time of town councilors, the town manager, etc., to come up with a data set? This is data gathering. That's what this is. And it's data gathering that's important, but I don't see the necessity of having a task force do this.
Tillman?
Yes, so clearly the towns are not represented, and unless there is exactly equal representation from each of the towns, I cannot see that this is a productive way of getting to an agreement of common data that can then be used in the four towns meeting as a basis for discussion. And so I cannot possibly vote for that. I do agree that if this is something that's intended to have a conversation with Amherst, then I feel this is outside the purview of the regional school committee, and certainly if we were invited by Amherst, we would send an appropriate representative. But the construction of this task force that would only look at Amherst does not seem to be appropriate for this committee.
Jennifer?
I have an idea bubbling up about committee composition. There's 4 towns, right? So that's, if there's a representative from each town, that's 4 already, and I don't want this committee to be too large. But if we had a representative from, so I was thinking Amherst School Committee, Regional School Committee, Amherst Town Council, and then 1 representative from the elected bodies of Pelham, Leverett, and Shutesbury. That's 6. Usually committees should have an odd number. What if we throw the Pelham School Committee in there? Because Pelham is within our superintendent's purview and is also having severe budget crises. So that would be 7. And I'm not making obviously we're not going to vote tonight. I'm not making a motion or anything. That's not equal representation from each town. I don't know that there's a way to do that, given that there's four, I just, but that is representation from each of the towns. So, given that we have a joint, I believe we have a three-way joint meeting next, in April, I might think about writing something up for that meeting.
Thank you.
Just wanted to point out that Dr. Herman has had her hand up.
Yep. Dr. Z.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to, I heard the past two discussions and I wanted to chime in and just remind the committee, and I don't know if I clarified this, when we first started talking about the portrait of a graduate and the strategic plan work, that a part of that contract, that once the strategic plan is developed, it is to also create a strategic budget that aligns to the strategic plan. So the district has already started some of the work in terms of trying to determine how we can align our budget to our programming. And that's the first thing where we started off with the portrait of a graduate. The next step, we're going to do our goals and begin our strategic plan. And from there, we're going into strategic budgeting. So I think some of this work overarchingly is going to be done through this work at the district that we've started to work on. And if you would like an update or an overview on that, we are doing something on April 8th. And so I do not mind asking Dr. Leyland to present again around specifically what the strategic budgeting piece that she's going to work with the district on would look like, to see if that would answer some of these concerns for the region.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, well, like I said when I started, I wanted this to just be a discussion. So I appreciate all of the discussion. I feel like we've had a lot of really good ideas come up. And so I think we can be all done with it for tonight. And so moving on to our next, we have accept gifts, which we don't have any to accept. The warrants will be attached. Oh, they're in, yep, okay.
Yes.
And future,
They're supposed to be email. I don't know anyway. Is
oh,
anyone getting them?
no.
Okay.
All right, that needs some back office work. Okay. Future agenda planning. Sarah. Oh,
So
wait,
this
hold on.
Four Towns meeting, people had a lot of thoughts or ideas, so I think, I have the impression that in the past, it's been you and Dr. Z who figure out what the agenda is. I think, and maybe that's fine, but this one seems a little, it's a little unclear to me at least, exactly what we're gonna be wanting to accomplish. Are we taking a new budget? Are we, I mean, I have no idea. And everybody will need to know what is the purpose of the meeting, so.
So like a Four Towns prep? Is that what you're
Yeah.
asking about? Okay.
Sure.
I just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly. Okay. Anything else? Anna?
So the policy meeting, the policy subcommittee met today, and there was, we were looking over some policies that we don't have. And one of them is, we don't have a policy on graduation requirements, and other towns do. And we do have graduation requirements in the district, we just don't have a policy on them. So the question is, do we need a policy on them, or are we fine the way we are? And then should we bring that to, should the policy subcommittee address that or not? And then the second one is, we do not have a policy on retention and promotion, and should we? And so we could address this in the policy subcommittee meeting. And the question for the committee is, do you want us to do that?
Okay. Anything further?
That's not a question you're asking now. It's a discussion you want to have.
It's for the agenda planning. Yes, I think we should have a discussion about that.
Yes. Deb?
Yeah, so I also didn't do my homework on this one. We have a policy about students and their rights around going to school and being a sanctuary city and protection from ICE. Can we I'm not aware of a plan that's associated with that policy. I know things were evolving in the very beginning of the year, but I think the guidance from the Attorney General and various groups has settled out. So if Dr. Herman has created that or has started that process, I'd like to know about it.
Okay. Okie dokie. Anything further? Jennifer?
I move we adjourn.
Yes. I will second that.
Second.
Oh. Jennifer?
Yes.
Bridget?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
Deb?
Yep, yes.
William?
Yes.
Irv?
Yes.
Tillman?
Yes.
And Sarah Beth. We are adjourned. Thank you all.